What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you an update to not only my favourite deck, but one of my most favourite decks to actually profile, and that is of course like a Yugi based deck. So it is Dark Magician, it does involve the brand new revived Sky God, and it involves of course Slifer, the Sky Dragon, Yugi's original God monster. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe. If you get this video up to above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, I will bring you a branded Slifer deck profile as well, which just utilises this card even more. It is a draw 7 technically, and it is crazy good once you get to it. With all of that out of the way, I'm just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you exactly what we got, and then explain the reasons behind some of the card choices. Massive shout out to Joe on this, who had made some awesome suggestions. He knows the God decks better than me, and being able to combine both our brains, we were able to come up with this build. So, let's start with the Dark Magician cards. 2 Dark Magician, that's pretty much all you need right now. You definitely don't need 3. It's a Dark Magician deck, so you still need to be representing it at 2. Not only can you utilize it by bringing it back in the grave with Eternal Soul, but you use it as fusion material, you can use it as link material. It just helps you get everywhere you need to go. Then, of course, we've got triple Magician's Rod. So this is your main normal summon of the deck. You don't really want to be normal summoning any of the other monsters in this deck because purely it's there to search you out all the pieces you need. It is your bridge between Dark Magician and Slifer because it gets you to the cards that let you stack your deck, which then ultimately leads you to be able to activate the card that lets you get Slifer from the deck. The most important thing about this deck itself in general is that you need to be getting Slifer from the deck to either the field and or graveyard eventually in order to trigger the trap card. The trap card is only as powerful as long as you've got the setup ready for it. For those of you who don't know what the trap card does, just so you go through this profile understanding the reasons behind it, the activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated, nor can its effects be negated. You special summon a Slifer the Sky Dragon from the graveyard specifically, then each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand. You can banish this card from the graveyard, place 1 monster reborn from your deck or graveyard on top of your deck, and then if a Divine Beast monster is in your graveyard, you get to draw an additional card, which would ultimately mean you're going to be drawing that monster reborn. Now, the reason the card is so good is because you'll draw 6 cards, you'll make Slifer the Sky Dragon that you revive from the graveyard 6k, 6k, and then keeping in mind as well, Slifer also has that additional effect that when your opponent normal or specials in attack, it reduces its attack by 2000, and if its attack points reduced to 0, it is destroyed, which is really, really cool. However, what you do need to keep in mind is it does make both people draw 6 cards, so the best way of resolving this card is by going first. You flip this, once your opponent draws for turn, they already have 6 cards, you get a fresh new hand because the idea of this deck is you're trying to burn it out. You're trying to make sure that you set everything, you put all of your monsters on the board, that you've got your Dragoon. If at anything you've got 1 discard of Dragoon, or if you don't even have a discard at all, you flip the revived Sky God, you're going to get 6 new cards with plenty of discard fodder. So carrying on with the Dark Magicians, how do you empty your hand? How do you empty the board? How do you draw into your trap? Well, of course, there is with Magician's Souls. Now, this is a double-edged sword for the pure fact that to get the draw effect of Magician's Souls on the board, it means you need to put Dark Magician to the graveyard and not put him on the field. But your route to Dragoon comes through Magician's Rod, Souls, getting Dark Magician to the board, and then your Timaeus Dragon being able to fuse. So that is your most direct route to Dragoon. It is your boss monster. It does work out really, really nicely, but you've also got to be a little bit cautious because Super Poly is running rampant in this format right now, whether it be in the main decks or the side decks. It's definitely something that you need to consider, which is why when we get to the side deck, you end up playing stuff like Secret Village of the Spellcasters to counter that. You also play cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance, Goes and Match, Rivalries, and that's where you'll need to change it up because that's where your Slifer the Sky Dragon clashes, as it is a Divine Beast and a Divine type, so you've got to be very, very careful. Continue on, the second, or maybe the most important card in the deck is Double Illusion of Chaos with Double Preparation of Rites. Now, you can play 1 Saravas, the dragon, if you want to, but the reason we've gone with 2 and 2 is technically you're better off with a 2 and 2 ratio than a 3 and 1, because at least with a second copy of this, if you've already got the 2 Illusions of Chaos, you can Magician's Soul send it to get a free draw. Off the back of that as well, a 2 and 2 gives you a nice deck fin ability while we're sitting at a 40 card deck, and gives you an instant route into Illusion of Chaos, which can put itself back Or what you are sometimes going to want to be doing is putting Slifer the Sky Dragon back into the deck if you have drawn it. We'll carry on with the Dark Magician cards, and then I'll go over the bridge, and then I'll go over the board breakers leading into Slifer. And then we'll go over the other cards as well. So the other Dark Magician stuff we have is 2 Soul Servant. Now this is just as important because the card we use to bridge everything into our dragon is the True Name. You want to have as many possibilities to stack as you can. So you've got 2 Soul Servants to do that job. You've got 2 Illusion of Chaos plus 2 Preparation of Rites plus a Dark Magical Circle. Not to mention you've then got 3 copies of Rod that can get you to these 3 cards right here. So your consistent way of being able to stack the deck in order to call it correctly for the True Name is at near max potential. Like there's no point, well, max potential without affecting your consistency, because if you play 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, you start to clog the deck down massively. So this kind of ratio has worked out really, really nicely for me. The only other card that I've highly considered putting into this version of the deck is Pot of Prosperity, but I wanted to try and hold back so that I didn't go all out and basically make it a deck that if you're not a Dark Magician, you're not a Slifer, and you're not a Yugi fan, like even if you are those, that you're not going to be able to play. Access Code, spoiler, in the extra deck is probably the only card that's like, whoa, this is going to break a bank, but there are ways to adapt that I'll explain as we go through. The last kind of Dark Magician style cards are Magicalized Fusion and Eternal Soul. I did consider Dark Magician Girl, I did consider the Field Spell as well. The reason I kind of took them out was for the pure fact that Dark Magician Girl, it's not as easy to get the draw to, it's not as easy to set her up. If you wanted to play something like Fusion Deployment, it would make it a little bit easier, because then what you could technically do is you could Fusion Deployment Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl, and then you could Souls the other one, and that puts both of them to the board. It then, in theory, would let you activate Soul Servant to stack Secrets of Dark Magic, banish the Soul Servant from the top of the deck, get your Secret of Dark Magic, activate the Secret of Dark Magic, fuse in the Dark Magician plus the Dark Magician Girl, and gets you into the Dark Magicians, which when you activate a spell or trap will let you draw an additional card. So technically, if you were to add the Slifer, the Revived Sky God, into that kind of combo route, ultimately you would have drawn 2 off a Soul Servant, 1 off of the Dark Magicians, and then 6 off of the Revived Sky God. So you would have ended your opponent's turn with anywhere between 7 and 8 cards in hand, which is absolutely mad. But like I've already explained, you don't really want to plus too much of the Soul Servant unless you're getting to cards that you want to set and get out of your hand. If you end up drawing into Illusion of Chaoses or Dark Magicians that you've already used, Magician's Rods or anything like that, it just minimizes the draw effect behind the Revived Sky God, which, like I said, is why, or the whole kind of point of this particular deck. So that's it for the Dark Magician based cards. Now I'm going to talk to you about the bridge cards. So this is what bridges the Dark Magicians with the Slifers. Now in the branded version, obviously it's a lot more consistent because you have triple branded fusion, which gets you Slifer to the graveyard. In this version, what I've done is I've actually maxed out on the True Name. Now the reason I've maxed out on the True Name, you could play something like Foolish Burial if you wanted to as well. But what the True Name gives you is it gives you that ability to not only add any card in your deck from the top of it to the hand, if you've revealed it off a circle, for example, but it also lets you add any card you stack with Dark Magician, and then lets you special summon a Slifer the Sky Dragon from the deck. Now, once it becomes dead, and what I mean by that is, technically once you've activated the True Name once, you're only going to be able to special summon Slifer once. However, what it does let you be is that these multiple cards can then be used as send fodder with your Magician Souls, or if you activate something like Magician Circle, Soul Servant, Illusion of Chaos, anything like that, you can still activate it to add the card because it is optional to special summon the Slifer from the deck. So that does give you the best of both worlds. You can still technically add this as a 1-for-1 replacement as long as you have successfully stacked the deck and lets you continue to play from there. We then play 3 of the brand new, the Revived Sky God. Absolutely love this card for Slifer based plays. It's a shame it's a trap, but it makes sense as a trap because if it was a spell, it'd be broken. So, as I already explained at the start of the video, neither player, or it technically can't be negated, and its effects can't be negated. Both players draw cards until they have 6 in their hand, so the best time to activate this is when your opponent has drawn for turn, because then they will no longer have 6 cards in their hand. Off the back of that, it lets you bring back Slifer the Sky Dragon, and I know not many people play this apart from pure God players, but Slifer has an amazing ability that basically it gets the ability, so it gains 1,000 attack and defense for each card in your hand. If a monster or monsters is normal or special summoned to your opponent's field in face-out attack position, that monster loses 2,000 attack. Then if its attack becomes reduced to 0, you destroy it. So what makes this really cool is just by activating this, bringing this back, putting it in defense, it's a 6k defender that's then going to let you obviously draw 6 cards. As long as you don't discard, its attack stats won't change. And then constantly, if your opponent puts any monster in attack position, it will lose 2,000 attack. Which means, if they are playing sprites, for example, they will struggle a little bit because they will then need to be putting all of their monsters into defense. They would then be able to have to go to Toad first to make sure that it only goes down to 200 attack. And even then, it still isn't strong enough to kill the Slifer. So it does cause a lot of issues for your opponent. It means that if they try to go to Gigantic, they have to put Gigantic in defense. In order to make Gigantic strong enough, if they wanted to put it in attack, they would need to use a Link monster, which means they can't use any of their Link monsters, which means they can't get to Splight Elf or Halley Firebrax, anything like that. Really, really cool kind of counter card. It is very, very niche and very, very specific. So I'm not saying this is now going to topple the meta. It is just something that as a Yugi follower, as a Yugi player, as a Dark Magician player, being able to finally utilize Slifer in this deck is incredibly amazing to do. Now, because the trap card sadly isn't searchable, the best way of us to utilize that is to play 2 forms of trap tricks, because then that technically allows us to play 5 copies of the Revived Sun God. Now, on top of that, we are playing 2 Imperm, just so you have another target for the trap trick, but it's more so that you've got the balance of the hand trap, and again, these can be used as send fodder with your Magician's Souls. Now, this is something very valuable that Joe mentioned to me as well, and I was like, well, surely to get the most value out of this card, you want to flood your deck with hand traps. But then he made a very good point. He was like, well, most hand traps aren't that effective. Like, one single hand trap isn't that effective. And unless you're going to draw 6 hand traps just to empty your hand again, you're better off playing board breakers. So, with that in mind, I am playing triple Dark Ruler No More and double Super Poly. Now, double Super Poly is actually a little bit more important. It can be a bit risky because obviously the deck you face may not be susceptible to Super Poly. They may play around it. It may cause you more issues than it actually helps, and that's where you side it out for game 2 and 3. However, Super Poly is such a powerful card, being able to be set the first turn, that unlike Dark Ruler No More, you could swap it out for Dropless if you wanted to, because you're going to be drawing 6. But I feel that when you look at Splight matchups and everything like that, you need to be able to Dark Ruler the board to turn it off, to then be able to continue to make your plays uninterrupted. And then you don't mind OTKing your opponent as long as you can pick all of the pieces off and then Slifer the Sky Dragon, add it all back and go again. Then, of course, we've got the 1 Monster Reborn to go with the second effect of the Revised Sun God. So if you have a Divine Beast in the graveyard, you can banish it to put Monster Reborn to the top of your deck, and then you get to banish it to draw 1 card, which will let you draw the Monster Reborn, which is great because then you can Monster Reborn, bring back Slifer, and then if you've got another Revived Sun God, you draw up to 6. It's now a 6k attacker for your turn. Keep in mind that when Slifer is special summoned, like all of the other gods, they do send themselves to the graveyard during the end phase as well, which means it will constantly be in the graveyard. There's no way of keeping it around unless you're going to tribute 3 monsters. And then the final package that I play, because I play this in pretty much all my Dark Magician decks, and I still feel that if Yugi was to play a modernized version, he would play this because, you know, spellcasters. We play the 1 Ecclesia, the 2 Servants, the 1 Schism, and the 1 Punishment. Now, you could play Fleur de Lis if you wanted to, but the way I see this is going first, this engine is absolutely mad. Not only can it help you empty your hand out, but it also helps you set up a window that helps protect your Slifer even more. And then when you're putting your board down, like even if you put your board out and everything gets destroyed or you link off or anything like that, you can kind of play around Super Poly. And then you've got the trap card. It's like, well, I'm just going to keep bringing back Slifer as a 6k boss monster. Plus I've drawn a whole new hand. I might not even need my extra deck, so let's go with it. Before I move on to the extra deck, I'm going to try and explain this in every Dark Magician build that I do, just to clarify how you make Schism work without a Shadow in the main deck. So the way it works is Nadir's Servant will send App Cologne from your extra deck to the graveyard. This will search you out Ecclesia, and then App Cologne's effect will trigger to search you out the Schism. You then resolve App Cologne's effect by discarding 1 card, which at this point, if this is all you have, you discard the Ecclesia. You then set the Shadow Schism, and as long as you have a Dark in the graveyard, whether it be Souls, Dark Magician, Rod itself, you activate Schism, banishing your App Cologne as your Shadow monster, banishing the Dark monster to fulfill the requirements for your El Shadow window, summoning down your window, locking your opponent into 1 special summon. And if you've been able to do this as they trigger an effect, so for example, if they were to go activate Chiron in the hand, you go, okay, cool, chain Schism. not only will Schism resolve by summoning out the Winder and locking your opponent down because they've just summoned that Shiren, you could then trigger the effect of the Schism to send that Shiren, as it is a Dark, from the field to the graveyard. They could attempt to trigger the effect, but they've already used their one special summon because of the way the chain resolved backwards, meaning that they are locked under Winder and they ain't doing nothing. So, with that said and done, let's move into the extra deck. So, starting with the extra deck, we'll go off with the Dark Magician cards. So we've got the one Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, alongside the one Dark Magicians, and the one Dragon Knight. Now, the reason we've only got ones of this is for the pure fact, like I mentioned, when you look at the main deck, there is only one way to summon one of these. Now, if you wanted to change it up, if you wanted to go with, well, technically two, you've got Magical Eyes Fusion, and then you've got the Tomiath Dragon. If you wanted to change it up, you could put in Secrets of Dark Magic. The reason I didn't do that is because it's in this particular build, the branded build, you've got more access to dragons. In this build, you don't have as clear-cut routes to dragons, so it's not as consistent to do. If you wanted to go full control and you went Red Eyes Fusion with Tikaboos, Secret Villages, everything like that, you could do that as well. But like I said, if you want to maximise the Dark Magicians, you play Dark Magician Girl, you play Fusion Deployment, you don't care about your Link monsters. Whereas in this particular build, because I'm playing the True Name, I wanted to get as much value out of the Slifer on the board as possible. We've then got double Winder with the one App Cologne. Now, Winder is something that I do when I have space in the extra deck for this particular deck. And the way that it works is quite simple as once your opponent clears the first Winder, they're like, okay, cool, I'll leave Schism on the board. It's not a threat to me, whatever. And then you can go, okay, new turn, activate Schism, banish the first Winder plus any Dark in my graveyard, summon a second Winder, resolve Schism to non-target, send a Dark from the field to the graveyard. That gets past Drakus Tapelia, and it can also help get rid of some other amazing boss monsters as well. Continuing on, our Super Poly targets and our Dogmatika punishment targets are Garura and Drakus Tapelia, alongside an Elder Entity for the punishment, because then you get a double pop. Moving on to the Link monsters, pretty straightforward and simple on this one. Apart from this one, Relinquish Anima. Now, I feel a lot of people get a little bit lazy and they completely forget this card exists. So sometimes they will put a Toad in front of a Link zone. Now, more times than not, if they are playing sprites, they're probably putting it in a zone that Elf points to. But with Anima, you can then put it to the other side and possibly steal a carrot, steal an orange. You bait out some form of interruption. You bait out some form of interaction as well that kind of allows you to push your plays further forward. If they get a little bit contemplated, you can also, keep in mind as well, if you were to side in Lava Golem, you could Lava Golem your two opponent's monsters, then special summon out Magician's Souls, link Magician's Souls into Anima, and then take back that Lava Golem, so you now have a 3k Anima on board, and you can clear the rest of the board off with greatest of ease. For Link 2s, we've got the one IP Masquerena, followed by the Dark Charmer. Again, the Dark Charmer is just one of them ones that floats in and out of formats. It is incredibly powerful and important right now because you not only can you steal certain cards in the Spike matchup, but you can also steal cards in the Tier matchup as well. We've then, of course, got Selene, followed by Unicorn, and then finally Access Code. So you've got your aggressive route. So you could go Anima into Selene directly, or Anima, Dark, Selene, and then Selene into Access Code. Or defensive route, you've got IP, Unicorn, Access Code. So you've got ways to play during your opponent's turn and during your turn. It gives you the best of everything you need. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. That is the full profile. I will show you very, very basic plays. Now, you've already seen the Dragoon play, and the Dragoon play is basically, or the way to get to Dragoon in this build is a route to Magician's Souls and Magician's Rod with a discard. So keep in mind that either of these can come off the back of Illusion of Chaos. And the idea would be that you Magician's Rod, you search out your Soul Servant specifically, you Magician's Souls, you send Dark Magician and then summon the Dark Magician, then activate the Soul Servant, you put the Tomiath Dragon on top of your deck, there we go, you then banish the Soul Servant because you control Dark Magician to draw it, you then use this effect to tribute off the Rod to summon this down, activate effect, fuse these two, this puts you into Dragoon, wherever he may be. There we go. Puts you into Dragoon. And you've got the discard in hand. So that's the 3-card Dragoon combo. I'm now going to show you the card combo that will get you into the draw 6 plays. Now, obviously, the biggest downside is quite like where you need to hard draw like an Illusion of Chaos, Illusion of Chaos, a Magician of Souls and everything like that. You need to hard draw one of these two. The best thing about Track Trade is it's very hard for your opponent to stop because it sets the card. So you need to hard draw one of these two, and then technically in order to get to Slifer, you do need to hard draw the True Name, or you hard draw Slifer in a way to discard it. And then off the back of that, what you need to do is you need a route to stack your deck. So you've got Magician's Rod, you've got a direct route to Soul Servant, you've also got a direct route to Circle, and then of course you've got another route to Illusion of Chaos. So Illusion of Chaos can get you into Rod, Rod can get you into Servant or Circle. So you've got plenty of ways to stack your deck. I'm actually going to go Rod into Circle, purely because you can add any card by doing that. So this is our hand. Let's do it basic easy. Normal summon Rod. Rod's effect to search. We're going to search out Circle. Now the only reason I do this is if I've got the True Name, because the way it would work is I would then activate Circle. Now if I reveal a Dark Magician card broken, I get to add it. Very unlikely in this particular build. But I'm going to go broken scenario. Let's say the top 3 cards of our deck that we reveal are... I mean, technically, you could reveal a Sky God as well. So this is where a little bit of luck comes into play. Let's go with this one. So let's say our top 3 cards are these 3, right? We don't get any of them. We whiff off of the Circle, which is completely fine. However, what you do get to benefit from is because you've got the True Name, you know you can add any of these to your hand. So I'm going to put Nadir Servant to the top of the deck. I'm going to activate the True Name. I'm going to call Nadir Servant. What do you know? It's Nadir Servant. I get to add this to my hand, and then I get to resolve the True Name by special summoning a Divine Beast from the deck or adding it to my hand. I'm actually going to special summon it from the deck. Then on top of this, what I then have the benefit of doing is I then get to link these two together, put them then to the graveyard in order to either bring out Dark the Dark Charmer going second, or, because I'm going first, we'll go with IP Masquerena. I will then get the ability to activate Nadir Servant. This will then allow me to send... Now keep in mind, this Nadir Servant is all it's all dependent on what you mill. If you don't get Nadir Servant, you're not going to get this play that I'm going to show, but you'll still get the draw 6, so don't worry about that. So you send the App Cologne from deck to graveyard. Your App Cologne effect will resolve along with your Servant, which will let you get Schism and will let you get Ecclesia. Now obviously if you have another discard, you can special summon down Ecclesia, you can set up a punishment as well, but we won't go down that route. So you're going to discard the Ecclesia to resolve the App Cologne. You're going to set 2 cards. You're going to pass to your opponent. Now, we've got no cards in hand, so we're going to pass to our opponent. During the draw phase, you can do it as early as you want, as late as you want, but basically what you want to do is make sure your opponent has 6 cards in their hand so they get no advantage off of the Revived Sun God at all. You're going to activate the Revived Sun God. So the issue with this is the activation of this card and its effects cannot be negated. So you specifically special summon a Slifer the Sky Dragon from the graveyard, and then each player draws until they have 6 or more cards in their hand. So the thing about this is there's no real cost to it. It basically just lets you do it all in one. So you activate this, you don't target a Slifer, you don't do anything, but if your opponent has a DD Crow, you cry massively. So that's just a thing to look out for. So you activate your Revived Sun God, your opponent cannot negate it. It doesn't say your opponent cannot respond, which is a bit of a shame, which would have been broken. Anyway, you special summon back Slifer, and then you get to draw 6. Now, the other thing about this, because its effect cannot be negated, it also means they cannot ash you, which is really, really important. And then we just draw 6 brand new cards. We've replenished our entire hand. And if that wasn't enough, because we've got Rod in the graveyard, you can activate Schism, banish Rod, banish App Cologne, and then summon out a nice tidy Winder as well. So because we did Slifer first, then Winder, we still have IP live, which also means that during the end phase, if you wanted to, because you've got 6 new cards, you could go IP, link all of these into an access code. If you wanted to put Appaloosa in, you could do that as well. Or you could just go IP into Slifer before Slifer kills itself to go into Unicorn, spin one of the cards back your opponent has played, and then you get to obviously go again the next turn, because you can Monster Reborn, bring back Slifer. Slifer will technically be on like 7k. Winder can't attack directly, but as long as Winder can attack something and do a little bit of damage, you'll be able to go. Plus, you'll already have Unicorn. So you could just do Unicorn Winder into Access Code. Access Code can clear a board off. Schism can get you a second Winder if you want to, and then Monster Reborn back a Slifer. Anyway, I hope this has kind of made sense to you guys. If you do have any questions with a deck like this, I am always more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, like I said at the start, if you smash the like button, get it to above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, I will bring you a branded Slifer deck profile. Yeah, I didn't think I'd hear those words ever in my lifetime, but we are hearing them right now. As absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.